Hello and welcome to Squatch Spot. I'm Darren Smith and I hope all of you are having a great weekend. I am back out in the field and I am searching for that physical evidence that the Sasquatch are moving along this ridge to access those higher elevations. I'm talking about their spring migration here as they move up to those higher elevations for the warmer summer months that are approaching. And I have received some feedback from some of you who are insistent that the Sasquatch do not migrate, and that may be in your area of research. However, here in the California Sierra Nevada mountains, I absolutely believe the Sasquatch are migrating. And I'm not talking about flying south for the winter. I'm talking about a short distance movement pattern that correlates with available resources for the Sasquatch. And I think in the winter months when these mountains are covered with snow and the resources are scarce, I do not believe the Sasquatch hibernate. So I do believe they move down to those lower elevations into the valleys surrounding the various homesteads and mountain communities. And I think they're down in those areas looking for resources and looking for available food. So, and in the warmer months, in the summer months, they are moving to the higher elevations where there's more readily available water, food sources, and also in this area, when you have millions of tourists coming to this area to visit Yosemite National Park and the surrounding areas, I believe the Sasquatch are moving up to those very remote, higher elevation locations to escape the human traffic that is in the area. So I absolutely believe here in the California Sierra Nevada mountains, the Sasquatch are migrating, and this migration is roughly, looking at a map, 40 to 50 miles, I would say. Something like that would be their movement pattern during these seasonal migrations. And I think it's very important that we utilize this time to try to lock down that movement pattern, because as I mentioned before, if we can lock down that seasonal migration movement pattern, it's going to be much easier for us to anticipate their movement patterns in the future and to encounter them. So I've discovered some very interesting footprints here, and although they're measuring at 11 inches, based on the location of where I'm finding these tracks and the positioning in the environment, I do believe these could very well be juvenile Sasquatch prints. And I'm going to be casting a number of these tracks here because I do think they are good. And they are all consistent in size and shape. Clearly they are not bear tracks, and they do have toe definition, and they are a good shape, and they're in a location where I have had Sasquatch activity in the past. So I am a bit surprised to find these juvenile tracks just out here. So I am going to be moving around the environment to be looking for any other tracks of any other individuals, because generally the juveniles are not moving around on their own. They're usually with that family group. So I do find it interesting that so far in the environment I am just finding these 11-inch tracks. However, again, the positioning and the location of these particular tracks is very intriguing to me, because it does make sense that a juvenile would be kind of hunkered down in this area where I've discovered the tracks. And so I am going to get the plaster cast mix out, and I'm going to be probably casting 3 or 4 of the tracks that I'm seeing here that look like they would produce a very good cast. So I'm going to get busy on that, and once I pour the plaster cast mix, I am going to be moving through this environment to see if I can find any physical evidence that there are or were other Sasquatch in the area. But these tracks look fresh, and we had a storm that recently moved through this area, and from my understanding, this area actually got a little snow that has obviously melted off, but the ground is in a state where it makes a very good medium for those footprint impressions that we're looking for. And as I mentioned, that's always something you want to keep in mind when you're out and about looking for that physical evidence that the Sasquatch are moving through the area. So I really do think that this is an amazing find, because I'm looking at this trackway here, and it is unusual that this is clearly a juvenile. It's not an adult Sasquatch. And I really don't think the juvenile would be out here on its own. So I'm definitely going to be checking out the environment to see if I can find any other physical evidence that there were other Sasquatch in the area. But I'm going to get busy at casting these tracks and kind of investigating the area. Though these tracks absolutely fall within human range and parameters, taking into consideration the remote location, previously encountered activity in the area, and some intriguing angling noted, I am open to the possibility these could in fact be juvenile Sasquatch tracks. The size, shape, and general characteristics of the tracks do look good. When noting a trackway of human footprints, the impressions are usually spaced, staggered, and angled differently from Sasquatch tracks. Sasquatch tracks are very often discovered in virtually a straight line due to their unusual gait. And although the tracks on this trackway do show a staggered movement pattern, there are some unusual angling that suggests it may not have been the result of a human gait, but rather the result of indecision and or a change in direction. The tracks moved up a slight embankment heading towards a very large tree. The right tracks were angled slightly away from the tree towards a clearing. However, steps later they veered back towards the tree, which to me implied a lack of focus direction or indecision. I believe this may explain why these footprint impressions were staggered, and what I found very intriguing, these tracks were discovered in very close proximity to a forest road that does have limited vehicle traffic this time of year. And based on the positioning of these tracks and the evidence gathered, it does appear the creature had moved across the road, and after doing so, immediately approached a very large tree near the roadside, where footprint impressions were discovered that concluded the creature moved up to very close proximity of the tree and appeared it was hiding behind the tree before moving off into the woods. The creature that had made these impressions never moved into the cleared out area and remained in very close proximity to heavy brush, and based on the movement pattern and the evidence gathered, it seems clear to me this being was taking pains to hide itself and to remain elusive. I'm hoping by making the footprint casts, they will show us more detail that will help us identify what had made the impressions. I scoured the area for a considerable amount of time, searching for physical evidence there had been other Sasquatch in the area. However, I did not discover any. Though surprised a juvenile Sasquatch would be roaming the woods alone, I do find the footprint impressions and angling compelling, and the movement pattern and positioning is very conducive to Sasquatch behavior. The close proximity footprint impressions near the very large tree suggest the creature had very likely crouched down behind the tree for a bit before moving into the woods. It stayed out of the open spaces and remained in the cover of heavy brush. And just because I did not find any other physical evidence to support there were other Sasquatch in the area, that is not to say there weren't. After pulling the cast, I hopped into my vehicle and headed up the ridge to other areas of interest I had been monitoring. I spent the remainder of the day investigating these areas. However, I did not come up with any definitive evidence the Sasquatch were still moving along this ridge as they head up to those higher elevations. Unfortunately, Memorial Day weekend is upon us, which means the forest areas frequented by vacationers and local outdoor enthusiasts are swarming with people. And I am very confident the Sasquatch have very likely already retreated to those very remote locations in the backcountry. However, I'm going to continue to monitor these areas of interest along this ridge and the surrounding areas, and I am making plans to get up to those much higher elevations in the weeks to come. Together we have a much better chance of solving this mystery. I have shared this sentiment numerous times on previous videos, and I really do believe it is true, which is one reason I share my research and findings on YouTube. And in response to an overwhelming request from many of you who have reached out to me on Facebook, I have created a Squatch Spot Facebook group where we can better connect on a more personal level. And I am happy to report, since I launched this Facebook group, I have already received an amazing show of support from many of you. And I have received several very credible first-hand reports from areas I have been investigating. Together, we do have a much better chance of solving this mystery. And if you are interested in better connecting with me and keeping up to date on my goings-on, I absolutely encourage you to join my Facebook group. I absolutely believe we are getting very close in our quest. The Sasquatch are real, there's no doubt about it, and they are roaming our forests, and I really do believe a major discovery is just around the corner. I want to thank all of you again for your continued support of my channel and your encouragement. It is absolutely the support I am getting from all of you that keeps me motivated to continue my quest. And until next time, I'm Darren Smith, and I'll see you here at Squatch Spot.